The mass exodus of Iranian footballers continues. And not only are players going to Europe, but also plenty of players are also leaving, going across the Gulf to Qatar to play in the Qatar Stars League. And it's only fitting for one of our guests today to be Roy Kaviani, who's been on the show before. Roy, thanks for joining us. Great to have you joining us from all the way from Doha, Qatar. How's it going?
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure, and I'm loving it. How's it going?
Doing okay over here. And of course, my co-host also on the show today, joining us from Den Haag in the Netherlands, Kiarash Mahdavi. Good to have you, man. How's it going?
Yes, it's going very well. Thank you a lot. I hope everyone is well, and I'm happy to be on the second part of the show. And I'm very excited about being with Roy and having a pod with him. So ready to get started.
Now, talking about this mass exodus of Iranian footballers. So a lot of players have been leaving the Iran Pro League. Like I said, we'll get to those players' names in a moment. Some of them going to Europe, some of them going to Qatar. Now, my first question to start off, I say it's a pretty basic one, is this good or bad for the Iran Pro League that so many Iranian players are leaving? Kiarash, we'll start with you.
Well, under Iranian football fans, including me, there was this sentiment that we didn't have enough players in European leagues and that most players were too lazy to leave Iran, especially the players of Persepolis and Istiklal, who supposedly had good salaries and, the best clubs of Iran historically. But with this mass exodus of Iranian players to European leagues recently, we can see that they are becoming hungry and motivated to prove themselves in European leagues, especially smaller European leagues. I think this can be a crucial step for creating a better image of what our football has to offer to the outside world, and can help our competition in the national team on the long run. So I think it's a good development for the Iranian Pro League that if these players become successful in European leagues, it's a good marketing for our domestic league, and new talents can stand up, and the cycle repeats itself.
Okay, Roy, same question for you. How do you feel about, let's just say if more and more players keep leaving Iran to go, just to go play in other countries?
I see it's positive because when a player leaves the club in Iran, the club in Iran replaces him and finds a new talent, and Iran just keeps generating talent. So that's from one side. So it develops the football in Iran itself. Maybe the standard might drop when the clubs go to the Champions League in Asia, which we've seen with the beside of Persepolis, of course. But in the same time, you're getting all these young talent players who replace these players that left. Now, the players that left, you've got two types or three types, you can say. The young ones who want to develop, so they go to the medium to low ranked European teams like the ones in Austria or Greece or something. And then you get the top ones like Taremi or Sardar who go to top teams. And then you get the medium ones who join similar level league like the ones who come to Doha. And we've got 7 now in Qatar in total, I think. The league is not bad here. It's almost on the same level as the Iranian league. There's 5 foreign in each team. So, and some of these players are top level. We've got Santi Cazorla playing here, and I know he's at the end of his career, but the level is high. Qatar's Asian champions as well, so it's not like they've gone to a weak league. So you're getting this, and there's a big impact on some of them. Some of them, I think, might struggle if they go back to Iran, or they're happier here. They seem happy. Some players as well, reaching the end of their career, or the 27 or 28 years old, you're never going to make it. You're never going to do the jump when you're 28 or 29 from Iran to a top team in Europe. So he's probably thinking financially as well. So he needs to end up coming here and playing for a good club and see how it goes in the last 2 or 3 years. And when you play here, I think there's more exposure to being picked up from a European club. Like Ali Dai, when he went to Germany, he's actually in Qatar in Al Sadd.
One thing I want to mention, I appreciate, of course, the explanation. You've been living in Qatar for a long time, so of course you're the right person to talk about this. And also, as we all know, Roy Kaviani is a big-time Team Melli supporter, so he knows his club football. all over the map, and also is a huge supporter of Iran. First I want to list off these players that have gone to Qatar recently. So Mehrdad Mohammadi, Mehdi Torabi both recently signed with Al Arabi. Shoja Khalilzadeh recently signed with Al Rayyan. Ruzbeh Cheshmi left Esteghlal and signed with Salal. And I could even mention Moslem Mojadami, who was playing for Sanatanaf Abadan. He signed with Muayter in the second level of Qatar football. So we're seeing a lot of players leave. And of course, I'm going to go with you on this one next, Kiarash, is that when we know that Mehrdad Mohammadi had a good season with Desportivo Aves in the top flight of football in Portugal. And we heard rumors about him possibly going to Braga, maybe even going to the French Premier League. And then he actually joined Al Arabi, and that surprised a lot of people. So Kiarash, were you happy with Mehrdad Mohammadi going to Al Arabi in Qatar?
Well, let me start off with the fact that there are two sides of this story. I want to explain that. Well, first of all, I'm disappointed with every Iranian player moved to Qatar for sporting reasons. And that's because he had a fairly good first season for a relegation team like Aves, and was by far their most productive player with like 8 goals and 6 assists in 28 games in the Portuguese league. That's pretty impressive for someone who just came off from the domestic league. And considering his good performance, he must have had solid offers from at least mid-table Portuguese teams. One was even rumored to be Braga. The other team was a French team. And I think there was Saint-Etienne. But there's another side of the story as well. There's huge competition in Team Melli regarding the forwards. We have Azmoun, we have Taremi, we have Golizadeh, we have Jahanbakhsh. So I think he knew that he would have a tough time breaking into the starting 11, even if he went to a better side than Aves. So I think fair enough for him to take the opportunity and play himself financially independent in Qatar, because they offer good money there. The facilities are good, world-class standards. They are also preparing for the World Cup 22. So I think the league is developing in a very high tempo. And I think that he can succeed there, definitely. From what I know, most Qatari teams do have European top-level stars playing there. And let's not forget that it's not set in stone that he stays in Qatar for the rest of his career. Just like Karim Ansawi Fard stayed 1 season with Al Saliyah and then returned back to Europe to play with one big Greek team, AEK.
And Roy, of course, I want your insight on this to touch on what Kiarash had to say. And in recent years, I think a lot of people have been saying that the Qatar Stars League has been getting a little better. So can you elaborate on that and and how you've seen the league change over the years?
Yeah, the league's improved a lot. I would say in West Asia, it's probably third. I would say Saudi's got the best league. Maybe Iran goes second, and Qatar's close third. And the teams are always within quarterfinal, semi-final of the Champions League. That's the only way to judge it. As competition-wise, here we've got Al Sadd, they are on another level by themselves, and then you have the rest of the teams. So you got Duhail. So it depends on the quality of the player himself as well going. So Mehrdad Mohammadi, I don't think he's probably not even good enough to play for Al Sadd, honestly. But then you have Ramin, who he got relegated with Shahaniya last year. If you remember, I told you he scored 13 goals playing for the bottom team in the league on the right back, and then he got picked up by the champions, who were Duhail. So it depends on each player as well. What does he want? Mehrdad was 27 years old. So if you haven't played for Team Melli this much and you're reaching the end of your career kind of now, and you never made the top level, can you see him end up going to a big club in Portugal or in Europe? I don't think that's going to happen. So he's probably thought financially, or he's thinking about career, or maybe restart his career again, going with a weaker league than Portugal and see how it goes. But it doesn't mean it's the end for him. If he plays good and shows himself, then he might go to the next level and goes back to Europe. might happen. The problem would be if he was 21 or 22, dropping from Europe to come here. But if he's 27 or 28, then you're getting towards the end of your career. So you need to you think about yourself in the future. And the league is not bad anyway. If he went back to Iran, nobody would have said anything. So the league here is almost on the same level. Even sometimes you watch it and the pace is faster. The managers here and the coach and the system is a lot different, more professional than it is in Iran. So I know that the Iranian league is stronger, but it's stronger because of the talent and the players there, not as an organization, as a league structure. The league structure here is much better than it is in Iran. Al Arabi, the way they play as well is mostly wingers and big. They play different than the rest of the teams in the league. Most of the teams in the league play with a Spanish style and it's quick passing. Arabi plays different. They play more long ball, English style. Yeah, it's a good club. It's the club I support here. So I'm happy to have the guys here.
Sure. Well, I can't be surprised when you mentioned playing the long ball English football. You know, you're wearing a Newcastle shirt, so I definitely know your style and what you prefer and all that. Yeah, and of course appreciate the analysis. And also another thing is, it's always easy for Iranian football fans or football fans in general to talk about things with such an optimistic point of view, like to have in the realistic point of view brought as well. And the last few players I want to talk about now, we're shifting gears to Europe now. These players I'm going to list off that have recently moved to European clubs. Shahriar Moganlu went from Pékin to Santa Clara in Portugal. Ali Alipour, of course, went from Persepolis to Maritimo to team up, of course, with Amir Abedzadeh. Reza Asadi went from Traktor Sazi to St. Pölten in the Austrian Bundesliga. And then Mohamed Reza Azadi just recently signed with Panathinaikos in the Greek Super League. So now my question for you, Kiarash, I'm going to go with you on this one, is how great is this for these four players to be going to Europe, and yet only one of these players, who's Alipour, he's the only one who's actually featured for Iran at the national team level, and even then, he's not really made that many appearances for Iran. So how good is this to see these four players going to European leagues?
Well, these players you mentioned are a long-term project, of course, for the exception of Alipour, who has been a key player for Persepolis for many years right now. But let's see it this way, they chose to move to Europe at a very young and early age. They might not be in the picture of Team Melli right now, but I think they will eventually replace the older players like Ehsan Haisafi. One player to keep an eye on is, of course, Reza Asadi, defensive midfielder who signed for the Austrian side St. Pölten. But although the Greek and the Austrian league are not ranked as European top 10 leagues, I think it's a good landing spot to start a European career at an early age. Just think about Jahanbakhsh, who started his career in the Eredivisie and even played his second season in the second level of the Dutch league, Jupiler Pro League. So there will be a lot of room for learning and development, and I think that will help Moganlu and Asadi a lot in their fundamentals, which have been lacking in our domestic leagues. It proves the point that our other guest, Roy, says that the Qatar Pro League is much more professional, focused more on development and fundamentals. When we look at Alipour, he's already 24, and he has, like you said, featured in Team Melli for 3 times right now. And his move to Maritimo for me is more exciting because at 24, I think he can be possibly a starter for Team Melli. Of course, he will partner with Abedzadeh in a great city like Madeira. And I think depending on his performance for Maritimo, he can give us an extra mention in Team Melli as a sub player for now at least. So when you consider this, positives, developmental players, and Alipour, I think Team Melli's competition is overall raising, and that will give Skokic a very luxury problem, which is his procedures like Kiarash really didn't have, especially when Kiarash started. He only used the few legionnaires he had at his disposal.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say with that is that I feel like Iranian football fans have wanted this for a long time. I mean, of course, it's easy to say, excuse me, it's easy to say, hey, we want our best players from the best leagues to be called up, and that's fine. And now, Roy, I'm going to you on this one. Is this pretty much, do you agree with this kind of viewpoint that Iranian football fans want to see even the players who haven't even broken into the national team yet already getting their shot to play in Europe?
Yes, that's absolute positive. A player when nobody's heard of really, and especially us who don't live in Iran, and they're suddenly playing in Europe, all these clubs now. So this player will develop definitely much better in Europe than in Iran, at least discipline-wise and training procedures and stuff. They'll improve anyway. So I think at the end, in a couple of years, all this will start showing. And especially my other route is, I look at Ajax. They sell players every season, and the players that replace that club are almost on the same level, and it keeps producing. And that's, I think, what's happening in Iran now. The more the players leave, we'll have more players in Europe, and Iran is still producing talent. And definitely, Iran is the most talented country in Asia with players, raw talent. I'm not talking about what happens after they hit 25, 26. But if Iran has got the proper foundation for these players, Iran will probably compete with some of the teams in Europe. Players are strong physically, mentally, everything. They've got everything, skill-wise. But it's just it's what happens upstairs that ruins it. So when these players go to Europe, and at least they start getting the basics when they're young, once they get older, and all this will benefit the national team. Look at Mahdavi, 9 years in Germany, and he's got the academy in Iran now, and his team beats all the Persepolis and all these clubs on the same level. So one day you'll see what's happening with his academy. The players that he's going to produce, and you'll probably see it in the next 4 or 5 years, will be on a higher level than the youth system that's in the clubs already. You can see it happening now, and I appraise him for this, definitely. Salute.
All right. I like how you mentioned raw talent. I mean, that's something that we should always be thinking about first and foremost. And it's true. There is always plenty of talent. And I remember, just earlier we were talking about whether or not this was good or bad for the Iran Pro League. And yes, we do know the situation in Iran is definitely not good. And, it's unfortunate. But from the football standpoint, a lot of players leaving, it's going to create just more opportunities for others. And that's what we got to be excited about. And with that, it is time to wrap up this edition of Team Melli Talk. First, Roy, I'd like to thank you for taking the time. Always great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, and always a pleasure to be on the show. We need to do another quiz for my revenge. So yeah, always a pleasure, and all I can think about is the 2 games against Bahrain and Iraq. That's all I can think about now.
Well, I definitely like your mindset. And like you said before, yes, you'd like to be back on Team Melli Trivia to get your revenge. Well, I definitely will have a spot for you eventually. I know Kiarash will be ready. Kiarash, thanks again for being on the show. Always a pleasure to have you on the show as my co-host.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you, Roy, very much for your extensive analysis. I really enjoy it, and I learned a lot about the Qatar League. And I hope to be matched up with you soon in Team Melli Talk Trivia. Thank you very much, both.
We'll see, and hopefully we'll see you in Doha in a couple of years, inshallah.
Yeah, sure, inshallah.
Yes, we're all hoping for that. And thank you, everyone, for the support. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification button. You could go to our website, www.teammelitalk.com. Remember, this is your spot for the latest news on Team Melli, the national team of Iran. Make sure to find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know the handle, @Team Melli Talk. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you on the next edition of Team Melli Talk.